The smell of fear is acrid, like copper pennies soaking in vinegar. It clings to the skin of every woman huddled in the holding pen, our bodies pressed together in the dampness of the stone chamber beneath the auction house. Outside, rain beats against the high, narrow windows, offering glimpses of a gray sky that matches the color of my hopes. I count the droplets racing down the glass, trying to focus on anything but the reality of what awaits us above. "Stand straighter," hisses the handler, her fingers digging into my shoulder as she passes. "Pretty face won't save you if you look beaten already." I do as I'm told, though my legs tremble beneath the thin shift dress they've given us all to wear. White linen, threadbare in places, meant to reveal just enough to entice the buyers without giving everything away. Mine hangs loose where others fill their fabric. I am 23, and have the curse of hollowness where life should grow. The auction block awaits those of us deemed defective. In our society, a woman's worth is measured by her ability to bear children, particularly for the wolf shifter clans that rule our territories. I was married once, to a beta of a minor pack. For 3 years, I endured his mounting frustration, his family's whispered accusations, and finally, the public humiliation of being declared barren and worthless. My husband divorced me under pack law and sold me to the auction house to recoup his bride price. My fingers find the small wooden pendant hanging at my neck, the only possession they allowed me to keep. My grandmother carved it from a branch of the ancient oak that stood sentinel over our family home for generations. "The strongest trees grow in the harshest winds," she told me when she placed it in my palm on her deathbed. I was 12 then, unaware of how harshly the winds would one day blow against me. A bell tolls somewhere above, and the handler returns, more agitated. "They're starting early. The Alpha King himself is in attendance." A ripple of whispers moves through the women. The Alpha King of the Northern Territories rarely shows himself at such common events. He rules over all packs in the North, a figure of almost mythical power and cruelty. Some say he's never taken a mate because no female has survived the claiming. As the first women are led upstairs, my stomach knots. Not from fear of being chosen. No one chooses the barren ones for pleasure or status. We are bought for labor, for service in kitchens or laundries, or worse, for blood sport in the fighting pits, where shifters amuse themselves watching humans struggle against impossible odds. When my turn comes, the handler yanks me forward by the arm. "You," she says with a sneer, "try to look useful for something." The stairs feel endless, each step bringing me closer to whatever meager fate awaits. I clutch my grandmother's pendant, its edges worn smooth by years of worried fingers before mine. The wood warms against my skin, a small comfort as I emerge onto the auction stage. The auction house is grand, all dark polished wood and red velvet, filled with the elite of shifter society. Their eyes gleam with predatory interest as each woman is presented, assessed, bid upon. Some wear their wealth openly in gold and jewels. Others need only the natural authority of their bearing to command respect. All of them look at us as one might regard livestock. When I step forward, the auctioneer's voice booms across the hall. Next, we have a female, 23 years, educated, previously pack-married, healthy and sound of limb and mind, classified as barren. Starting bid at 50 gold pieces for service purposes only. The hall grows quieter. Even at the low price, few hands raise. Barren women are bad luck to many packs, believed to bring infertility to others around them. I keep my gaze fixed on the back wall, refusing to let them see how their dismissal cuts into me. The auctioneer calls out a few meager bids, his voice growing less enthusiastic as he prepares to close the sale to a rough-looking beta who likely needs kitchen help in some remote outpost. Then, a disturbance at the back of the hall. The crowd parts like a wave retreating from shore, and a hush falls so complete I can hear the rain drumming on the roof above. He moves with the fluid grace of an apex predator, tall and broad-shouldered, dressed in black that makes his presence seem to absorb the very light around him. Dark hair frames features cut from stone, high cheekbones, strong jaw, and eyes so intensely blue they appear to glow from within. Even without knowing who he is, my body recognizes power. Danger. Every instinct screams to run. But there is nowhere to go. The Alpha King stops at the edge of the stage, looking up at me with an expression I cannot read. Not lust, not pity, but something more calculating, more intent. He says nothing, but raises one hand. The auctioneer stutters. Your Majesty honors us. Do you wish to bid on this lot? 5,000 gold pieces, he says, his voice deep and resonant, carrying effortlessly through the silent hall. Gasps ripple through the crowd. It's an absurd sum for a barren woman, enough to buy a small estate. The auctioneer's eyes bulge, and he looks around frantically, as if expecting someone to challenge the bid or reveal a joke. 5,000 once, he stammers when no one speaks. I stand frozen, my heartbeat a frantic thing in my chest. Why would he, the most powerful alpha in the Northern Territories, want me? The rumors about his cruelty flood my mind. Perhaps he needs subjects for some terrible experiment. Perhaps barren women serve some dark purpose in whatever magic keeps him in power. 5,000 twice. The wooden pendant burns against my skin now, as if responding to my fear. I clutch it tighter, my only anchor in this moment that makes no sense. Sold. To His Majesty, the Alpha King. Guards appear at my sides, not the auction house handlers, but the king's own men, distinguishable by the silver wolf emblems on their black uniforms. They escort me from the stage, past rows of astonished faces. Some show disgust, others calculation, as if reassessing my value now that the king has shown interest. A woman near the front, elegantly dressed, clearly from a high-ranking pack, looks at me with naked hatred. As we pass the Alpha King, he doesn't acknowledge me. Instead, he turns to his steward, a thin man who scribbles frantically in a ledger. Have her prepared and brought to the palace, not to the harem quarters. The steward looks up, surprise evident before he masters his expression. The guest chambers in the East Wing, Your Majesty. The blue suite in the Royal Wing. Another ripple of shock moves through those close enough to hear. The Royal Wing is reserved for family and the highest-ranking visitors. No purchased woman has ever been housed there. I'm led through a side door into a covered walkway where a grand carriage awaits. Black with silver detailing, the royal crest emblazoned on the door. A wolf howling beneath a crown and 3 stars. Rain patters on the canopy above us as a guard opens the door. In you go, he says, his tone not unkind. Don't try to run. There's nowhere to hide from the king. As if I could run. As if there's anywhere in this world that would shelter someone who caught the unwanted attention of the Alpha King. I climb into the carriage, its interior plush with velvet cushions in deep blue. As the door closes, I catch a final glimpse of the auction house, where more women wait their turn, their fates seemingly less mysterious than mine. The carriage lurches forward. Through the rain-streaked window, I watch the city pass by. First the wealthy districts with their stone mansions and carefully tended gardens, then the merchant quarter with its bustling shops now closing against the worsening weather. We cross the bridge over the river that divides the city and begin the climb up the winding road toward the palace that crowns the highest hill. My fingers haven't left my pendant. The strongest trees grow in the harshest winds, I whisper to myself, though I doubt even my grandmother could have imagined winds as harsh as these. What does one wear to meet their doom? My threadbare shift clings damply to my skin. My light blonde hair hangs in tangles down my back, and I smell of the holding pen's damp stones and fear. When the carriage stops, we're at a side entrance to the palace, a modest door compared to the grand front gates I've glimpsed from the city below. 2 female servants wait under the shelter of the portico, both wearing the same silver wolf emblem as the guards. This way, miss, says the older of the 2 as I step down from the carriage. Her expression betrays nothing of what she thinks about this unusual arrival. They lead me through corridors of increasing grandeur, stone floors giving way to marble, plain walls yielding to tapestries and artwork. We climb a sweeping staircase and proceed down a hall where guards stand at regular intervals. Finally, we stop before a set of double doors carved with intricate patterns of wolves running through forests. The Blue Suite, announces the servant, opening the doors to reveal a chamber more luxurious than any I've ever seen. Blue silk drapes frame tall windows that look out over the city below, now a sea of twinkling lights emerging as dusk falls. A fire crackles in a marble fireplace, casting warm light over furniture crafted from pale wood and upholstered in varying shades of blue. Through an archway, I glimpse an enormous bed with diaphanous curtains. "We're to help you bathe and dress for dinner," says the younger servant, already moving toward another door that presumably leads to bathing chambers. "The king expects you in 2 hours." As they bustle around, filling a copper tub with steaming water and laying out soaps and oils, I stand in the center of the room, still clutching my pendant. Nothing makes sense. Why would the most powerful alpha in the territories pay a fortune for a barren woman he could have simply commanded the auction house to give him? Why place me in chambers fit for royalty? And most troubling of all, what will he want from me when I join him for dinner? The bathwater turns gray with the grime of the auction house, then clear as the servants pour in fresh, steaming pitchers. They scrub every inch of me with scented soaps that smell of lavender and cedar, then rub oils into my skin until it gleams. My hair they wash 3 times, working through the tangles with patient fingers before drying it with warm cloths until it falls in pale waves down my back. "Such pretty hair," murmurs the younger servant, running her fingers through the blonde strands. "Like spun moonlight." "Hush, Mira," the older woman scolds. "Mind your place." I want to ask them questions about the king, about why I'm here, about what to expect. But something in their carefully neutral expressions stops me. They are kind in their ministrations, but maintain a professional distance that discourages confidences. From a wardrobe come undergarments of fine silk, softer than anything I've ever worn, followed by a gown of deep midnight blue that seems to shimmer with tiny points of light, like stars against the night sky. It fits perfectly, as if made for me. "Did you know I was coming?" I finally ask, as the older woman fastens pearl buttons up the back of the gown. Her hands pause momentarily. "The king sent word ahead while you were en route. We were told to prepare chambers and suitable attire, but how did he know my size, my coloring?" She resumes her work with the buttons. "His Majesty sees many things others do not." A cryptic answer that explains nothing yet somehow chills me. What else has he seen about me? What does he know? When they finish dressing me, they lead me to a mirror, a full-length looking glass in a silver frame. The woman reflected there is almost unrecognizable. The gown enhances the paleness of my skin and the color of my hair, making me look ethereal, otherworldly. Only my eyes remain unchanged, gray as the storm clouds that still hang over the city, filled with apprehension. My hand goes to my throat, seeking my pendant, but it's gone, replaced by a delicate silver necklace set with small blue stones. "My pendant," I say, turning to the servants. "The wooden carving. Where is it?" The older woman produces it from a pocket. "We were instructed to remove it for dinner. You may have it back afterward." I reach for it, but she pulls back slightly. "The king was most specific about your appearance tonight." After a moment's hesitation, I nod. The pendant is my only possession, my only connection to my past, but refusing the king's orders before I even understand my situation would be foolish. Still, I feel naked without it, more vulnerable than when I actually stood unclothed before these women. As the hour approaches, a knock at the door announces a guard who has come to escort me to dinner. The servants step back, bowing their heads slightly. "Good luck," whispers Mira as I pass. The palace at night is transformed. Torches and candles cast dancing shadows along the corridors, making the carved wolves in the woodwork seem to run and leap. We descend a different staircase than the one I arrived by, this one wider, its banister polished to a high gleam. At its foot stands a tall set of doors, guarded by 4 men in the royal livery. They open the doors without a word, revealing not the grand dining hall I expected, but a smaller, more intimate chamber. A table set for 2 occupies the center of the room, lit by candelabras that cast a warm glow over fine china and crystal. One wall is entirely glass, offering a panoramic view of the city below, and the mountains beyond, now silvered by a moon that has emerged from the clearing storm. The Alpha King stands at the window, his back to me, hands clasped behind him. He has changed from the severe black he wore at the auction into formal evening attire. A midnight blue jacket that matches my gown over a silk shirt and black trousers. The coincidence of our matched clothing cannot be accidental. Your Majesty, announces the guard. Your guest has arrived. He turns, and I drop automatically into a deep curtsy, eyes lowered as protocol demands when addressing royalty. I've never been this close to someone of his rank before. The power emanating from him is almost a physical force, pressing against my skin. Rise, he says, his voice deeper than I remembered. And look at me. I obey, straightening slowly, lifting my eyes to his face. In the soft light, his features seem less harsh than they had in the auction house, but no less commanding. Those intense blue eyes study me with the same unreadable expression as before. Do you know who I am? He asks, a strange question. You're the Alpha King of the Northern Territories, Your Majesty. My name, he says, moving closer, is Damien Blackclaw. You may use it when we are alone. I swallow hard, unsure how to respond. Addressing the Alpha King by his given name would be a presumption punishable by lashing in some packs. And your name, he prompts when I remain silent. Eleanor, Your Majesty. Eleanor Winters. Eleanor. He says it slowly, as if tasting the syllables. Before I can process this odd comment, he gestures to the table. Join me for dinner, Eleanor Winters. We have much to discuss. A servant appears as if conjured from the shadows to hold my chair. The Alpha King, Damien, seats himself across from me, close enough that I can see flecks of silver in his blue eyes. More servants materialize, pouring wine and serving the first course. A delicate soup that smells of herbs and summer vegetables. You must be wondering why you're here, he says after I've taken a few hesitant sips. Yes, Your Majesty. Damien, he corrects. I couldn't possibly. You can, and you will. His tone brooks no argument, though it remains conversational. I dislike formality in private settings. I nod, taking a larger sip of wine than intended. The vintage is exquisite, nothing like the watered-down ale that was the best my former husband's household could afford. I imagine you've heard stories about me, he continues, watching me over the rim of his own glass. Some, I admit cautiously. A corner of his mouth lifts in what might be amusement. And do you believe them? The tales of cruelty and dark magic? I don't know what to believe, Your Damien. Good. Skepticism is wise. He sets down his glass. Most of what you've heard is fiction, invented by those who fear what they don't understand. Some is based on necessary actions taken to protect my territories. A very small portion might be considered truth. The second course arrives, roasted quail with glazed root vegetables. I've never tasted anything so rich, but my appetite is diminished by tension. You haven't asked the most important question, he says after we've eaten in silence for several minutes. Which is, why I bought you. The directness of his statement makes me flinch. However luxurious my surroundings, however civil this dinner, the fundamental truth remains. I am his property, purchased at auction. I assumed you would tell me when you wished me to know. He studies me, head slightly tilted. Cautious, diplomatic. You were wasted on that fool Raylan Beck. I nearly drop my fork. You know my former husband? I make it my business to know all the packs under my rule, especially those whose actions interest me. He takes another sip of wine. Raylan Beck is ambitious but short-sighted. When he divorced you for barrenness without proper investigation, it caught my attention. My cheeks burn with humiliation. Having my greatest shame discussed so casually over dinner by the Alpha King himself is almost unbearable. Proper investigation? I manage to ask. Pack law requires a minimum of 5 years and examination by 3 separate healers before a barrenness claim can be validated, he says matter-of-factly. Beck waited barely 3 years and consulted only his pack's healer, who is, incidentally, his cousin, and stands to benefit from his remarriage to a daughter of the Western Packs. The information strikes like physical blows. I had trusted Raylan when he told me all proper procedures had been followed, that my condition was beyond doubt. I see you were not aware, Damien observes. Another mark against him. It wouldn't have changed anything, I say quietly. I failed to conceive. The timeline and number of healers wouldn't alter that fact. Damien sets down his utensils with deliberate care. Wouldn't it? Tell me, Eleanor, did the healer examine both you and your husband? I frown. trying to remember those humiliating sessions. No. Raylan said there was no need. His virility was proven by a child he fathered before our marriage. A child who died in infancy, whose mother also failed to conceive again before dying of fever, Damien says, his tone hardening, a pattern any competent healer would recognize as suspicious. My mind reels. What is he suggesting? The problem, Eleanor Winters, was never with you. His blue eyes hold mine, intense and unwavering. Your husband is the barren one. He carries a bloodline defect that manifests after the first conception, rendering him incapable of fathering healthy children thereafter. His family has hidden this for generations, through convenient remarriages and strategic accusations. The room seems to tilt around me. 3 years of self-hatred, of questioning my worth as a woman, of enduring pitying looks and cruel whispers, all based on a lie? How do you know this? I whisper. I have access to records going back centuries. The pattern is clear to those who know how to read it. He pauses. And I had you examined while you slept during the journey here. My royal healer confirmed what I suspected. You are perfectly capable of bearing children. A fresh wave of shock washes over me. You had me examined without my knowledge or consent? For the first time, Damien looks slightly uncomfortable. A necessity I'm not proud of, but one that confirms you were gravely wronged. You have grounds for a formal complaint against the Beck Pack that would result in substantial compensation. Is that why you purchased me? To use me in some political move against a minor pack? The idea is almost more insulting than being bought for service. No, he says firmly. That is merely a peripheral benefit I'm offering you. My reasons are more personal. The third course arrives, a sweet pastry with forest berries. But I can't bring myself to touch it. My mind is too busy processing revelations that upend everything I've believed about myself. What personal interest could the Alpha King possibly have in me? I finally ask. Damien regards me thoughtfully. Have you heard of the Alpha's intuition? The ability to sense a true mate. It's said to be rare, even among Alphas. He nods. More than rare. It manifests perhaps once a century, if that. My grandfather had it, as do I. The implication hangs in the air between us, too enormous to grasp. That's impossible, I say flatly. True mates are born to complement each other. An Alpha King would never be mated to someone like me. Someone like you? One dark eyebrow rises. You mean someone intelligent, resilient, and compassionate enough to endure years of unjust shame without becoming bitter or cruel. Someone whose inner strength I sensed the moment I entered that auction house. His words are like hands reaching into my chest, exposing parts of myself I've kept carefully hidden. I shake my head, unable to process what he's suggesting. You don't even know me. I know enough, he says with quiet certainty. The rest? We have time to discover. The pendant. I need my pendant, need its familiar weight, and the memory of my grandmother's wisdom. My hand goes to my throat, finding only the cold brilliance of gemstones. This is too much, I say, rising abruptly from my chair. I can't. I need time. To my surprise, Damien makes no move to stop me. Of course. You've had many shocks today. Return to your chambers and rest. We'll speak again tomorrow. He snaps his fingers, and a guard appears at the door. Escort Lady Eleanor back to the blue suite. Lady Eleanor. Not the woman or my purchase. The upgrade in status makes my head spin further. As I turn to leave, his voice stops me. One more thing, Eleanor Winters. I look back, finding him still seated, watching me with those intense blue eyes. You are not my prisoner here. You may choose to accept or reject what I've told you. If you wish to leave, arrangements will be made for your safe passage to wherever you desire, along with funds to establish yourself comfortably. The offer of freedom is so unexpected that for a moment I can't speak. Finally I manage, "Why would you do that? After paying so much?" A smile touches his lips, transforming his severe features into something almost gentle. Because a true mate cannot be bought or coerced. They can only be won through trust and choice. Sleep well, Eleanor. I curtsy automatically and follow the guard, my mind a storm of confusion, doubt, and, most disturbing of all, a flutter of something that feels dangerously like hope. Sleep eludes me. I pace the luxurious chambers as moonlight filters through the blue silk curtains, casting ghostly patterns across the floor. The servants have returned my pendant, and I clutch it like a lifeline as I try to make sense of everything Damien Blacklaw has told me. Is it possible? Could I truly be capable of bearing children? And more incredible still, could I be the true mate of the Alpha King himself? The rational part of my mind rejects these notions. True mates are the stuff of ancient legends, rare even in the old stories. And even if they do exist, surely fate would not pair the most powerful alpha in the territories with a woman who, until this morning, was considered so worthless she was sold at auction. Yet I cannot dismiss his words entirely. There was no deception in those penetrating blue eyes, no hint that this was some elaborate game for his amusement, and the freedom he offered. Why provide an escape if this were merely a trap? When exhaustion finally drives me to the enormous bed, my dreams are a chaotic blend of auction blocks and palace halls, of Raylan's contemptuous face and Damien's intense gaze. I wake with the first light of dawn, feeling as though I haven't slept at all. Mira arrives with breakfast, fresh bread still warm from the ovens, fruit, and a pot of fragrant tea. She sets the tray on a small table near the window and pulls back the curtains to reveal a clear morning, the storm having passed completely during the night. "Did you sleep well, my lady?" she asks, the new form of address confirming that my status has indeed been elevated overnight. "Not particularly," I admit, pouring tea with hands that still tremble slightly. "There's been much to process." She nods sympathetically. "The king has requested your presence in the royal gardens when you've finished breakfast. There's no rush. He said you should take all the time you need, another kindness I hadn't expected. My former husband had demanded promptness in all things, growing irritable if meals weren't served exactly when he wanted them, or if I kept him waiting even a few minutes. After eating, I allow Mira to help me dress in a simpler gown than last night's, pale green silk with delicate embroidery around the hem and sleeves. This time, she doesn't remove my pendant, but simply arranges it so it nestles at the hollow of my throat. "It's an unusual piece," she comments. "Family heirloom? From my grandmother," I say, touching it gently. "She carved it herself." Mira's eyes widen slightly. "She must have been skilled. It's beautiful in its simplicity." It's a small observation, but it warms me. In Raylan's pack, the pendant had been tolerated as an eccentric attachment to a worthless trinket. No one had ever seen its beauty. The royal gardens occupy a sheltered valley behind the palace, protected from the harsh northern winds by high stone walls. As I follow a guard down winding paths, I'm struck by the variety of plants thriving in what should be too cold a climate for many of them. Roses climb trellises alongside exotic flowering vines I've never seen before, fruit trees heavy with early autumn bounty line walkways of crushed white stone. We find Damien in a secluded alcove near a small pond where golden fish dart among lily pads. He's dressed more casually today in a simple white shirt and dark trousers, though the quality of the fabric still speaks of his status. He stands when he sees me, dismissing the guard with a nod. "Eleanor," he greets me. "You look rested." A polite fiction we both recognize. The shadows under my eyes must betray my sleepless night. "Your gardens are remarkable," I say, choosing neutral ground for conversation. "Thank you. They're one of my few personal indulgences." He gestures to a stone bench beside the pond. "Please, sit with me." As I settle beside him, careful to maintain a proper distance, I notice the way sunlight catches in his dark hair, revealing threads of deep auburn I hadn't seen before. He's younger than I initially thought, perhaps early 30s, though there's a weightiness to his presence that speaks of greater age and experience. "Have you considered what I told you last night?" he asks directly. "I've thought of little else," I admit, though I find it difficult to believe. "Which part?" "All of it." I turn slightly to face him, that I'm not Barren, that my husband lied, that you would pay such a sum for me based on intuition. Damien nods, accepting my skepticism. "I understand your doubts. Trust is not easily given after betrayal." "It's not just about trust," I say, my fingers finding my pendant again. "It's about making sense of something that seems impossible. Sometimes the impossible is merely the improbable," he says, his gaze moving to the pendant. "May I?" After a moment's hesitation, I lift the cord over my head and place the wooden carving in his palm. He examines it carefully, tracing the simple curves with one finger. "Oak," he says. "Very old, and carved with love. My grandmother made it. She said, 'The strongest trees grow in the harshest winds,'" he finishes. I stare at him, stunned. "How could you know that?" A smile touches his lips, because my grandfather said the same to my grandmother when he gave her a similar pendant. It's an ancient saying among those with the old blood. Old blood? The original shifter lineages, from before the territories were divided. He returns the pendant to me. "Your grandmother was of the old blood. Though she may not have known it herself, the knowledge often skips generations, manifesting in small ways. Wisdom passed down, crafts that seem to hold special power, unusual resilience." I clasp the pendant, feeling it warm against my palm. She was human, like me. "Humanity is not as simple as most believe," Damien says. "There are traces of ancient power in many bloodlines, dormant but present. It's one reason why certain humans can bond more strongly with shifters, can bear shifter children without difficulty." He pauses. "It's also why some humans can be true mates to alphas. The implication hangs between us, neither acknowledged nor denied. Yesterday, I say slowly, you mentioned a formal complaint against Raylan's pack. What would that entail? If he's surprised by the change in subject, he doesn't show it. You would present evidence of improper procedure in your divorce and barrenness accusation. As Alpha King, I would adjudicate. If found in your favor, which is certain, given the evidence, you would be entitled to substantial compensation from the Beck pack and formal recognition that the accusation was false." "And my former husband?" Damien's expression darkens. "He would face consequences for his deception. Public censure at minimum, possible demotion within his pack's hierarchy. The thought of Raylan facing justice for what he did to me should be satisfying, but I feel only a hollow sort of tiredness. What would be the point? It wouldn't restore the years I lost or undo the shame I endured." "No," Damien agrees. "But it would restore your name and status, and it would prevent him from doing the same to another woman." This gives me pause. I hadn't considered that Raylan might simply repeat his pattern with a new wife when she inevitably failed to conceive. "Would I have to face him to see him again?" "Not if you don't wish to. I could represent your interests." Damien watches me closely, but there's something powerful about standing before those who wronged you and speaking your truth. I think of Raylan's family, his mother who whispered behind my back, his sisters who excluded me from pack gatherings, his father who looked through me as if I were invisible. The thought of facing them makes my stomach clench, but there's also a flicker of something else, a desire to be seen, to be vindicated. "I'll consider it," I say finally. "Good." Damien rises, extending a hand to help me up. "Walk with me. There's more of the garden I'd like to show you." We follow winding paths deeper into the royal grounds. Damien points out rare plants brought from distant territories, tells me stories of how certain specimens were saved during particularly harsh winters. His knowledge and evident care for growing things surprises me. It's at odds with the ruthless image portrayed in stories about him. "You seem shocked that I know about gardening," he observes with amusement. "It's not what I expected from the Alpha King," I admit. "And what did you expect? Constant displays of dominance? Terrorizing my subjects between meals?" Despite myself, I smile at his dry tone. "Something like that. The stories about you aren't exactly gentle." "An Alpha King cannot afford to be seen as gentle," he says, his voice growing serious. "Not in public, not when enemies watch for signs of weakness, but in private." He pauses as we reach a small greenhouse filled with exotic blooms. "In private, there should be room for other qualities. The air inside is warm and heavy with the scent of flowers. Vines climb trellises toward the glass ceiling, creating a canopy of green punctuated by brilliant blossoms in every color. "This is my favorite place in the entire palace," Damien says, watching as I touch the velvet petal of a deep purple flower. "Few are permitted to enter. The intimacy of the admission isn't lost on me." He's showing me something personal, something precious to him. It's a form of vulnerability I never expected from someone of his status and reputation. Why are you doing this? I ask suddenly. Sharing these things with me? I'm still a stranger to you. Are you? His blue eyes hold mine, searching. There are different kinds of knowing, Eleanor. I may not know your favorite color or the books you prefer, but I know the core of you. I recognized it instantly. How? What did you see that was so compelling you would pay thousands in gold for a woman considered worthless by everyone else? He moves closer, not touching me, but near enough that I can feel the heat radiating from his body, smell the pine and mountain air scent of him. I saw someone who endured cruelty without becoming cruel, he says softly. Someone who maintained dignity when stripped of everything. Someone whose inner light couldn't be dimmed by years of being told she was defective. His hand rises, hesitating near my face but not quite touching. Do you know how rare that is? How precious? Something shifts in my chest, a warming that spreads outward like sunlight breaking through clouds. No one has ever seen me this way, looked past surface judgments to find value in who I truly am. You can't know these things about me, I whisper, but with less conviction than before. Can't I? He finally allows his fingers to brush my cheek, the touch so light it might be the wing of a butterfly. Ask yourself why you're not afraid of me, Eleanor. Any other woman purchased at auction and brought to the Alpha King's palace would be terrified, yet you stand before me asking challenging questions, speaking your mind. He's right, I realize with a jolt. Despite everything, despite the stories and his intimidating presence and the strangeness of my situation, I haven't felt real fear in his presence. Confusion, yes. Disbelief. Even anger at having my life upended again, just when I'd resigned myself to whatever meager fate awaited me after the auction, but not fear. Perhaps I'm simply too exhausted by life's cruelties to fear one more, I suggest. No. His certainty is absolute. You're not afraid because on some level, you recognize what I recognized at the auction house. There is a connection between us that defies rational explanation. A commotion from the path outside breaks the moment. Voices raised in alarm, the sound of running feet. Damien turns, instantly alert, his posture shifting from openness to guarded readiness. The greenhouse door bursts open and a guard enters, breathing hard. Your Majesty, forgive the interruption. There's been an incident at the northern border. The Iron Claw pack reports an incursion from beyond the wall. Damien's expression hardens, the gentleman of moments ago replaced by the Alpha King of legend. Details. Raiders, sire. Dozens of them. They attacked a village near the pass, many casualties. Survivors? Being brought to the fortress at High Ridge. The Pack Alpha requests immediate reinforcements and your guidance. Damien nods sharply. Prepare my guard. We leave within the hour. He turns back to me, his face now an unreadable mask. I must go. The northern border is 3 days' ride from here. Of course, I say, stepping back, suddenly aware of how inappropriate our closeness might appear to the guard. You will remain here, Damien continues, his tone leaving no room for argument. The palace is secure and you will want for nothing during my absence. The shift in his demeanor is so complete it's almost dizzying. This is the Alpha King, the stories speak of, commanding, decisive, focused entirely on the protection of his territories. How long will you be gone? I ask, surprising myself with the question. Why should it matter to me? Something flickers in his eyes, a momentary softening, a fortnight, perhaps longer. Border incursions are unpredictable. He hesitates, then adds in a lower voice. Consider what we've discussed, about your former husband, about your status, about us. We'll speak again when I return. With that, he strides from the greenhouse, the guard falling in behind him, leaving me alone among the exotic blooms. I remain there for some time, touching the petal he had touched, trying to make sense of the whirlwind that my life has become. Yesterday morning I awoke in the holding pen of an auction house, resigned to a life of servitude. Now I stand in the private greenhouse of the Alpha King, apparently free to make my own choices, possibly, incredibly, the true mate of the most powerful shifter in the Northern Territories. And yet, as I finally make my way back toward the palace, I can't help wondering if this is simply a more gilded cage than the one I expected. The Alpha King has gone to war, leaving me behind like a possession to be secured. For all his talk of choice and connection, am I truly free? Or merely being courted before the inevitable claiming? My fingers find my pendant again, and I hear my grandmother's voice as clearly as if she stood beside me. Trust your instincts, child. They rarely lead you astray, but my instincts are as confused as my thoughts, pulling me in contradictory directions, toward caution born of past betrayal, toward hope sparked by unexpected kindness, toward a connection I can neither fully believe nor entirely deny. As I re-enter the palace, servants bow respectfully, addressing me as Lady Eleanor. The title still feels foreign, uncomfortable. Who am I now? Not the disgraced ex-wife of a minor beta. Not quite a prisoner. Not truly free. I find myself at the window of my chambers, looking out toward the northern mountains where Damien now rides. 3 days to the border, he said. Whatever danger threatens there, it was serious enough to transform him instantly from the thoughtful man who spoke of gardens and ancient bloodlines to the warrior king of legend. Which is the true Damien Blackclaw? The man who sees value in a discarded woman, or the ruthless alpha who inspires fear throughout the territories? And more importantly, what will happen when he returns? For now, I have no answers, only questions that multiply with each passing hour. But as I watch the royal guard assemble in the courtyard below, preparing for their journey north, I make one decision. I will not be a passive object in this strange new chapter of my life. Whatever game fate is playing with me, I intend to be a player, not merely a piece to be moved across the board. Days blur into a week, and a week stretches toward 2. The palace operates with precision in Damien's absence. Servants attend to my needs, guards patrol the corridors, and court officials continue their administrative duties. I am treated with deference bordering on reverence, addressed always as Lady Eleanor, and given freedom to roam most areas of the royal grounds. At first, I keep to my chambers and the gardens, overwhelmed by the vastness of my new surroundings. But as days pass, restlessness drives me to explore. I discover the royal library, a cavernous chamber with shelves stretching to the vaulted ceiling, containing more books than I've seen in my entire life. Here, I lose myself for hours, reading histories of the territories, ancient legends of shifters and humans, and treatises on pack law and customs. It's in one dusty tome that I find the first detailed account of true mates and the alpha's intuition. The text confirms much of what Damien told me, that the ability to recognize one's true mate instantly is indeed rare, manifesting in perhaps one alpha per century. More intriguingly, it speaks of the balance such pairs create, the alpha providing strength and protection, the mate bringing wisdom and tempering influence. The true mate of an alpha is neither subordinate nor dominant, reads one passage, but complementary. Where he is fire, she is water. Where he is earth, she is air. Together, they form a whole greater than its parts. I close the book, fingers tracing the embossed leather of its cover. If what Damien believes is true, if I am indeed his true mate, then I am not merely a barren woman rescued from auction, but potentially a figure of significant power and influence. The thought is simultaneously exhilarating and terrifying. On the 10th day of Damien's absence, I receive my first visitor. She arrives unannounced while I'm reading in the blue suite. A tall woman with striking auburn hair streaked with silver, dressed in the formal robes of a high-ranking official. Lady Eleanor, she says with a slight bow, forgive the intrusion. I am Lydia Snowvale, royal advisor and member of the King's Council. I mark my place in the book and rise to greet her properly. Counselor Snowvale, this is unexpected. Indeed. Her sharp green eyes assess me frankly. I would have come sooner, but matters of state have kept the council occupied since His Majesty's departure. There's something calculating in her gaze that puts me on guard. What can I do for you, counselor? She moves to the window, looking out toward the northern mountains as I had so often these past days. I came to satisfy my curiosity. The king's actions at the auction caused quite a stir in court circles. I imagine they did, I say carefully. She turns back to me, her expression unreadable. There are many theories about why he chose you. Some believe it's a political move against the Western Pax. Others suggest more carnal motives. Heat rises to my cheeks at the implication, but I keep my voice steady. And what do you believe, counselor? I believe Damien Blackclaw does nothing without purpose, she says, and rarely explains that purpose to anyone, even his closest advisors. Then we share the same confusion. A slight smile curves her lips. Do we? He spoke with you privately before departing for the border. He hasn't housed any woman in the royal wing in all his years as king. These are not the actions of a man pursuing a casual dalliance. I considered deflecting, but something tells me directness will serve me better with this woman. He spoke of the alpha's intuition and true mates. If I expected shock, I'm disappointed. Lydia nods thoughtfully, as I suspected. His grandfather and grandmother were true mates. The match brought decades of prosperity to the Northern Territories. You don't seem surprised. I've known Damien since he was a boy. I served his father and his grandfather before him. I've observed his isolation, his reluctance to consider political matches despite the council's urging. She studies me with renewed interest. If he believes you are his true mate, he must have compelling reasons. Or he could be mistaken, I counter. I'm human, Barren according to official record, hardly a suitable match for the Alpha King. Suitable matches rarely make suitable mates, Lydia says with unexpected bluntness. And records can be falsified, as I believe you've learned, so she knows about Raylan's deception. How much has Damien shared with his council? Why are you really here, Councillor Snowvale? I ask directly. She approaches, stopping a respectful distance away. To warn you that not everyone at court will be as accepting of your presence as I am. The king's enemies, and he has many, will see you as either a tool to use against him or a threat to eliminate. A chill runs through me. Enemies? I thought the Alpha King's authority was absolute. Authority? Yes. Popularity? No. Damien has made difficult decisions to protect these territories. He's broken the power of corrupt pack alliances, redistributed resources more equitably between shifter and human settlements, enforced stricter border controls. She shrugs slightly. Necessary changes, but they've earned him powerful opponents. And you think these opponents would target me? I know they would. Already there are whispers, questions about your background, your intentions. Her expression softens slightly. If you are truly his mate, you'll need allies. I can be one, if you prove worthy of him. Before I can respond to this conditional offer, a commotion in the corridor outside draws our attention. The door opens without a knock, and a guard enters, breathing hard. My ladies, he says with a hasty bow. Riders from the north. The king returns. Lydia's eyebrows rise in surprise. So soon? We weren't expecting him for at least another week. The situation at the border was resolved more quickly than anticipated, the guard explains. His Majesty rides ahead of the main force. He'll reach the palace by nightfall. As the guard departs, Lydia turns back to me with an assessing gaze. It seems our king was eager to return. I wonder why. Her implication is clear, and despite myself, I feel a flutter of something dangerously like anticipation. Damien is returning, riding ahead of his troops, pushing hard to reach the palace days earlier than expected. Thank you for your candor, counselor, I say, choosing not to address her insinuation. She inclines her head. We will speak again, Lady Eleanor. Perhaps once you've had time to discuss your future with His Majesty. After she leaves, I pace my chambers, unable to settle. Damien returning. Enemies at court. Political intrigues. True mates. It's too much to process, too far removed from the simple life I once led as a pack wife, and later as a woman awaiting auction. When Mira arrives to help me prepare for dinner, she brings news that the king has requested my presence in the same private dining chamber where we first ate together. He sent specific instructions about your attire, she says, opening the wardrobe to reveal a gown I haven't seen before. Deep crimson silk embroidered with silver threads that form intricate patterns resembling intertwined wolves when examined closely. The royal colors, I murmur, running my fingers over the luxurious fabric. Mira nods. It's a great honor. The crimson and silver are reserved for the royal family and those under their direct protection, as she helps me dress, arranging my pale hair in an elegant style, and fastening a silver chain around my neck, from which hangs my wooden pendant. now set in a silver filigree frame that somehow enhances rather than diminishes its rustic beauty. I ponder the significance of Damien's choice. To dress me in royal colors sends a clear message to the court. Whatever he intends to say to me tonight, it seems his mind is made up. Darkness has fallen by the time a guard arrives to escort me to dinner. The palace hums with activity. Servants hurrying through corridors, officials gathering in antechambers, guards in formal attire standing at attention along the main hallways. The king's return is no small matter, it seems. The private dining chamber is lit with dozens of candles, their warm glow reflecting off polished silver and crystal. Damien stands at the window as before, but turns immediately when I enter. The 10 days since I last saw him have left their mark. A new scar crosses his left cheekbone, and a certain weariness shadows his eyes. Yet when his gaze meets mine, those eyes brighten, the fatigue seeming to fall away. "Eleanor," he says, and there's a warmth in how he speaks my name that sends a ripple through me. "Your Majesty." I curtsy, suddenly uncertain how to act. So much has changed since our last meeting. Not in circumstances, perhaps, but in my understanding of my situation and the currents that move beneath the surface of palace life. "Damien," he corrects gently, approaching. "You look—" He pauses, seeming to search for adequate words. "The royal colors suit you." "Thank you," I say, aware of the guard still present at the door. "I'm pleased you've returned safely." "I heard there was trouble at the border." A shadow crosses his face. "Yes. Raiders from beyond the wall, but the situation is contained. We can speak of it later if you wish." He gestures to the guard. "Leave us. We are not to be disturbed." The guard bows and withdraws, closing the doors behind him with a soft click that seems to emphasize our solitude. For a moment, neither of us speaks. There's a tension in the air, a sense of standing at a precipice. "I've had many days to think," I finally say, breaking the silence, "about everything you told me." "And?" His expression reveals nothing, but I sense his restraint, his effort not to press or demand. "I visited the library. I read about true mates, about the Alpha's intuition." I take a deep breath. "I also had a visitor today, Counselor Snowvale." At this, his eyebrows rise slightly. "Lydia came to you? That's unexpected." "She said some interesting things about your enemies at court, about the significance of housing me in the royal wing." Damien moves to the table, pouring 2 glasses of wine from a crystal decanter. "Lydia is perceptive and usually direct." "What else did she say?" "That if I am truly your mate, I'll need allies." I accept the glass he offers. It made me realize how little I understand about life at court, about politics and power struggles, about your life. He gestures to the chairs, and we sit, closer than we were at our first dinner but still with space between us. "Do you wish to understand these things?" It's a carefully neutral question, offering me an opening without pushing me toward any particular answer. I appreciate the restraint it must take for an alpha, especially one of his status, to approach the situation this way. "I believe I should understand them," I say carefully, "if I'm to make an informed choice about my future." "Your choice." He repeats the words slowly, turning his wine glass in his hand. "I meant what I said before I left, Eleanor. You are free to go if that's what you desire. I've arranged a property in the Eastern Province, a small estate with loyal staff. It would be yours, regardless of your decision about us. The offer is more than generous. It's unprecedented. An alpha king offering a woman purchased at auction her complete independence, with resources to live comfortably for the rest of her life. Why would you do that? I ask, though I already suspect the answer. Because a true mate bond cannot be forced or coerced, he says simply. It must be entered willingly by both parties, or it becomes a shadow of what it should be. I study him, this powerful man who could command anything he desires, yet offers choice instead. The contrast with Raylan could not be more stark. My former husband had viewed me as a possession, valuable only for what I could provide. Damien sees me as, what? An equal. A partner. I'm still not certain I believe in true mates, I admit. It seems too convenient, too much like the fairy tales my grandmother told me as a child. Yet you don't deny feeling something, he observes quietly. A connection that defies easy explanation. I can't deny it. Not honestly. Since that moment in the auction house when his eyes first met mine, I felt something shifting inside me, a recognition that transcends rational thought. If I stayed, I say slowly, what would it mean? What would be expected of me? Damien sets down his glass, his expression serious. Formally, you would become my consort. In time, if the bond proves true, my queen, you would have duties at court, responsibilities to the packs under my rule. It wouldn't be an easy life, because of your enemies. He nods. Some would resist your authority simply because you're human, others because they had plans for political alliances through marriage that my claiming a mate would disrupt. You would be challenged, tested. And personally, I press, what would be between us? For the first time, I see uncertainty in his eyes. That would depend on what develops between us. I feel the pull of the mate bond, but I have no wish to rush you into physical or emotional intimacy you're not ready for. We would have time to know each other, to build trust. I rise from my chair, needing to move, to think. The crimson dress rustles softly as I walk to the window, looking out at the night sky where stars have emerged, clear and bright after days of unsettled weather. I spoke with Raylan in your absence, Damien says unexpectedly. I turn sharply. What? I sent messengers to bring him to a border outpost while I was dealing with the raiders. I wanted to confirm what I suspected about his deception. And did you? Damien's expression hardens. Yes. When confronted with evidence and the threat of a formal inquiry, he admitted to falsifying the barrenness claim. He knew of his family's bloodline defect, but concealed it to protect their status. You were meant to bear the blame, allowing him to remarry advantageously. Although I had already begun to accept this truth, hearing the confirmation sends a fresh wave of anger and pain through me. What did you do to him? I gave him a choice, Damien says, his voice deceptively calm. Face public disgrace and compensate you appropriately, or renounce his position in his pack and take exile in the Southern Territories. And he chose? Exile. He leaves within the month. Damien rises, approaching slowly. I didn't kill him, though pack law would have permitted it for such a deception. I thought you might prefer he live with his shame rather than die for it. The consideration in this decision touches me unexpectedly. Damien had anticipated what I would want, had acted to right the wrong done to me, but had done so with a restraint many alphas would not show. Thank you, I say softly. He stops before me, close enough that I can see the flecks of silver in his blue eyes, can smell the pine and mountain air scent of him mingled now with something else, the metallic tang of recent battle. I rode ahead of my troops because I couldn't bear another day not knowing your decision, he admits, a vulnerability in his voice I haven't heard before. These past 10 days have been difficult. You were fighting raiders at the border, I point out. I imagine that would be difficult for anyone. A smile touches his lips. The fighting was the easy part. The distance from you was what I found unbearable. The raw honesty in his admission strips away my remaining defenses. I reach out, touching his face near the fresh scar. You were injured. A scratch, already healing. He catches my hand in his, holding it against his cheek. Eleanor, what have you decided? In that moment, with his warmth against my palm and his eyes holding mine, the answer becomes clear, not through any supernatural bond or ancient magic, but through the simple recognition of a truth that has been building since the moment he saw me on that auction block. I want to stay, I say quietly. Not because I have nowhere else to go, or because you've offered me status and security, but because when I'm with you, I feel seen, truly seen, perhaps for the first time in my life. The tension in his body releases, a barely perceptible softening. And the mate bond? Do you feel it? I don't know if what I feel is what legends call a mate bond, I answer honestly, but I feel something, a connection I can't explain, a sense of rightness when we're together. I'm willing to explore what that means, to learn if the legends are true. Slowly, giving me every chance to pull away, he brings his face closer to mine. May I? I answer by closing the distance myself, pressing my lips to his. The kiss is gentle at first, a question and an answer both, but deepens as his arms encircle me, drawing me against the solid warmth of his chest. Something ignites between us, a current of heat and recognition that makes the legends of true mates suddenly seem less like fairy tales and more like prophecy. When we finally part, both breathing more quickly, I see wonder in his eyes, the powerful Alpha King looking at me as if I've given him a precious gift. "You honor me with your trust," he says softly. "I swear on my life and crown that I will never give you cause to regret it." Outside the window, the first snow of winter begins to fall, delicate flakes drifting past the glass. Inside, warmth surrounds us, the warmth of candles, of wine, of two bodies drawn together by forces older than either of us can fully comprehend. The pendant at my throat seems to pulse with a gentle heat, as if my grandmother somehow approves from whatever realm she now inhabits. The strongest trees grow in the harshest winds. I have weathered storms that should have broken me, endured shame and betrayal that should have turned my heart bitter. Instead, I stand transformed, no longer the discarded wife, the barren woman, the unwanted burden. I am Eleanor Winters, chosen by the Alpha King not for what my body can produce, but for who I am at my core. Whatever challenges await us, whatever enemies lurk at court, whatever tests our unusual bond must face, we will meet them together. And for the first time since my grandmother placed her carved pendant in my small hand, I feel not just strong, but truly seen, truly valued, truly home.